Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another DC Multiverse McFarlane Toys figure unboxing and review video. Now today we are going to be taking a look at the 2-pack based off The Dark Knight Returns, featuring Superman and Armoured Batman. Now, technically, we've already reviewed this Superman individually on the channel, but I'm curious to see if there have been any changes. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. What we are going to do now, though, is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here, of course, we have the box art, and seeing as though it's a 2-pack, it's an oversized box. We do still have a massive open window showcasing Superman and Batman, down below Superman vs. Armoured Batman, and of course a massive DC Multiverse logo. On the side, the exact same thing, except it also says Batman The Dark Knight Returns, and on the back of the box, some absolutely stunning action figure photography. I'm pretty sure this is the diorama style base that you get in this 2-pack. But that's not it for the artwork. Quite surprisingly, they've also printed an image from The Dark Knight Returns on the back of the inside tray. Now, I don't know if this is meant to be used as some kind of diorama piece, but I really like the way that looks. It's very simple. You can pop the display base down the bottom and have this in the background. Except there is one issue. You do have this clam tray piece that has been glued onto the front. So as soon as you try and remove it and remove all of these accessories, you are going to destroy this image. Please, Todd, if you are going to include gorgeous imagery like this that we could actually make use of for action figure photography, don't ruin it by putting that plastic stuff on the surface. As for Batman and Superman, it's going to be a little bit challenging to unbox them on camera, so... Now, technically there is a lot of reuse here. We've already reviewed the Superman as a single-carded figure, and Todd already released most of this Armoured Batman as a single-carded release as well, although the color scheme was drastically different, and he had a different head sculpt. We will be doing comparisons back to the originals though throughout the course of the video. What we are going to do now is get all of their accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything they come with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now, starting off with the diorama style display base first, it is very long. It is also quite narrow. It's an interesting shape, and there are a ton of bits and pieces sculpted into the surface, but nothing is really painted. We've got a broken trash can, a street sign, a sewer grate, and even a tire from a car. You also have a foot peg on one side and a foot peg on the other. It's just cast in grey plastic with a wash in the crevices. For the most part, it looks really good, but some of these things would pop just a little more if they'd been picked out in paint. You also do get a trading card for both Superman and Batman. Feel free to pause to read, but I'm pretty sure you'll have seen those read-ups before. You also have an image of Batman and Superman, the actual figures themselves, printed on the front of the cards. Now, in addition to the diorama base, you also get the standard tried and true DC Multiverse circular display base with one foot peg. Now, you may be thinking, Justin, didn't you forget the accessories for the figures? And unfortunately, no, they don't come with anything. The single-carded version of Superman came with 2 gripping hands. I would have loved to have seen that here. And unfortunately, Batman does not come with his sonic gun. You have 2 options to get this. This one is from the Mattel version, and this one I 3D printed. Now, I did a terrible job with cleanup. You can still very clearly see the print lines, but it was a proof of concept. I'll be able to print a much cleaner one. I just wanted to show you that something like this is definitely possible to source, even if the figure does not come with it originally. What we are going to do now, though, is get Batman and Superman themselves out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that, and this guy looks great. He definitely isn't perfect, and we do have a couple of things to discuss in comparison to the Mattel version, but for now, let's just admire the fact that we do have a 7-inch version of Armored Batman based off The Dark Knight Returns. Plus, that new head sculpt is stunning. It's a huge upgrade, and one that, in my opinion, was absolutely necessary. I also love the blue color scheme. It's not super accurate, but it is vastly different to what we got with the single-carded version. It is going to be up to you, though, to decide if this is the look you prefer, the one from the 2-pack, or the grey version that comes separately. And then, of course, we have Superman. Now, I was really expecting McFarlane to do something different here. A new head sculpt, a different hand, maybe even some battle damage or some shading painted on the suit. But no, they decided to do none of that. It's literally the same exact Superman that you got in the single-carded wave. Now, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. You should be getting at least something different if you're going ahead and picking up a 2-pack. I mean, they could have even included the kryptonite arrow sculpted into a hand so he could have held it. Something as simple as that. But so far, I don't think it's really worth picking up the single-carded Superman unless you really want to build that horse. You may as well pick up the rest of the wave and this 2-pack. What we are going to do now, though, is get Armored Batman back out here, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now, we will be spending a little bit more time with Batsy here as compared to Soups, because technically we've already reviewed him with the rest of the wave. This guy, though, I actually haven't covered on the channel before, even though I have the original that he's based off. Now, as far as I'm aware, these two are identical, except for the head sculpts. I absolutely loathe this head sculpt. I think it's hideous. It looks nothing like the source material, it's way too stylized. This is far better. Although, as compared to the Mattel version, I still think the Mattel one is far superior. It's just way more accurate. Now, yes, if you are after a Todd McFarlane designed Frank Miller Batman, this can work for you. But for me, I want comic book accuracy, and that's what the Mattel one gives us. This one, though, is no slouch. He is a big, beefy boy. Now, starting off with the sculpt, I really like it. It kind of gives me BVS vibes. I like the way they've sculpted the mouth, it's all painted very cleanly, and the crisp white for the eyes. Now, the sculpt is actually molded out of this swirly twirly blue metallic plastic. It's the same blue they've used for the chest, the shoulder pads, the gauntlets, the fists, and all the way down his legs. It means that in the right light, he actually does look suitably metallic. But it's the wrong colour. The chest should not be this blue colour, it should be grey. The only blue sections are a part of his fists, his knees, and down at his boots, plus the head sculpt. If only they'd copied a few pieces of this guy, then I think they could have had the perfect Armoured Batman. I might just do a kit bash sometime down the line and combine a few pieces here and there between these two to make the ultimate version. The sculpt work, though, is very impressive. The armor pieces do look like craggly, cracked, worn-out metal, and the same thing can be said all the way down to his boots. I also absolutely love this cape. I mostly do prefer fabric capes, but if you're going to sculpt it, go all out with the texture, and that's exactly what they've done. It actually looks like fabric. It is all one sculpted rubbery piece, but from a distance, the illusion definitely is there. Now, around the front, aside from the blue armor plating, you also have a light grey suit. The texture has been sculpted in very nicely, but it is very bright. I wouldn't have minded seeing some washes down in the crevices, especially when you're painting some of these pieces anyway. He also has a yellow utility belt, as opposed to the grey version on the original. I like the yellow, but I would have also liked it to be a little bit more vibrant. I know I keep comparing it back to the Mattel version, but it's just so painful to see the Mattel version be so darn accurate, and the newer, larger one, which is supposed to be superior, just missed the mark visually by a mile. Now, coming down to the legs, they are very armored up, and he does have these rather interesting rubbery plates that extend down over his shins. You can move them around and up and down, and the fins are also slightly rubbery, so you don't have to worry about breaking them off. He also has these massive spikes underneath his boots, and they have been picked out in some silver paint. It's something that they absolutely didn't have to do, but I'm glad they did. As promised, we won't be spending a ton of time here, but as for Soups, he is the exact same figure as we got in the single-carded wave. Now, the only difference between my two copies is that on this one I removed the yellow paint from the belt loops. That is something I absolutely recommend doing. Go ahead and check out the channel Brad the DC Universe Geek. He has a bit of a tutorial telling you how to do it. I followed his method and it worked perfectly, because out of the box it looks really weird having the yellow lines along the yellow utility belt. The suit itself, though, is pretty darn good. There are wrinkles sculpted in, there are some muscles that you can see through the suit because of course it is all sculpted as one solid piece, and then he does have a rubbery plastic cape around the back. One thing that I don't think I mentioned in the review for the rest of the wave is that the S-shield is a separate piece. I don't really love how far it sticks out on the bottom. I would have been perfectly happy with them actually painting this on the surface. I don't necessarily need it to be one solid piece that's over the top. Also, I think the S-shield on the back should have been something they absolutely focused on getting on here. I don't know why they didn't, and they favored the sculpt work of having all of these lines and pleats and folds. It's very busy, and it comes at the expense of this guy being as accurate as possible to the source material. Lastly, the head sculpt. I don't love it. I also don't necessarily hate it. There are panels that he looks kind of like this in, but for the most part, it's not my favorite representation of Dark Knight Returns Superman. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Superman, Armoured Batman, and the regular Batman that comes in just the regular wave. And I think we may have a slight issue here. As you can see, Superman and Armoured Batman stack up very nicely. They're roughly around the same height, give or take a little, just because of Batman's armor. Now, standard Batman, I didn't really have an issue with when it came to the single-carded wave, but now that I'm seeing him standing next to the armoured version of what's supposed to be himself, as you can see, he is significantly smaller. Now, yes, you can write this off as being an armoured version, therefore he's going to be bigger and beefier, but because you can actually see the undersuit, it kind of leads me to believe that it wouldn't add that much bulk, especially in terms of height. But at the end of the day, it's all down to personal preference. If this works for you, then that's totally fine. Next up, here we have the Mattel version of Armoured Batman, and as you can see, he's significantly shorter. But now that we've seen the regular version of Batman, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. The Mattel version, I think, stacks up a little bit better. Height-wise, sculpting-wise, paint application-wise, this guy is far more accurate to the Dark Knight Returns. The Multiverse version is kind of Todd's own modernized take on the armor, and for me, that's not what I was really looking for going in, because Superman, Batman, Robin, and Joker are all super faithful to the source material. I was expecting that from Armoured Batman as well. It's almost as though this suit was designed as a standalone piece, and then the idea to do the rest of the figures in the line came later. Now, in terms of articulation, Multiverse takes the win. but in terms of the look, for me, it has to go to Mattel. Now, because my Mafex version of Armoured Batman is yet to arrive, here we have the triumphant version, my favourite smaller scale Dark Knight Returns Batman, and as you can see, he is shorter as well. Now, he is far shorter than the DC Multiverse version because he's supposed to be a smaller scale. Now, if this works for you, then once again, that's totally fine, but for me, I don't think I could have this Armoured Batman displayed next to this Mafex figure. Just because curiosity got the better of me, here we have the Mattel Armoured Batman once again, but the Multiverse regular suited Batman. And as you can see, these two work perfectly together. The armoured one is bigger and bulkier and a little bit taller, but he is still far more accurate to the source material. So for me, yeah, he absolutely can work in the Multiverse line. Because Todd already set the precedent of his Dark Knight Returns Batman being a little bit shorter, this Mattel one can slot right in. Just going over articulation. Now, bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt, it is on a double ball peg, looking forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go out to there before the shoulder pad starts getting in the way. Forward and back, a little bit of butterfly up there at the shoulder, but not a ton. You do have a single bend at the elbow that almost gets you to 90, and a swivel incorporated in there as well, plus a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. You do have a ball joint below the waist section, and it does crunch forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there, they will go out to there. You don't have a swivel at the thigh, it is incorporated up under this rubbery diaper section. You do have a double bend at the knee that does go past 90, a hinge and swivel down here for the ankle, plus toe articulation. As for the Man of Steel, we already kind of know what his articulation is like if you've seen the single-carded version. If you haven't, let's go over it very quickly. Double ball peg at the head, looking forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side, arms out to there, forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down, single bend at the elbow that also incorporates a swivel, plus a hinge and swivel wrist peg. Ball joint for the torso that crunches forward and back, swivels and pivots side to side. Legs go forward to there, go out to there, and the swivel is incorporated up under his red trunks. A double bend at the knee that does go past 90, hinge and swivel for the ankle, plus toe articulation. Just wrapping up on the Armoured Batman vs Superman 2-pack from DC Multiverse by McFarlane Toys. Now, going into this, I was really excited, but it seems like I might have been excited for the wrong reasons. I don't honestly think this 2-pack is all that good. Now, don't get me wrong, if you don't have Superman and you don't have the first version of Armoured Batman, jump right in. This 2-pack will be worth it for you. But at the same time, if you get the single-carded version of Superman, you are getting the same exact figure, but you get an extra pair of hands. Now, yes, you are missing out on the diorama display base, which is really cool, but it's not something that I feel is essential. Now, as for Batman, he also doesn't come with any interchangeable hands, even though the single-carded version of Armoured Batman did, but he does at the very least get a much better, much more accurate head sculpt. Now, for me, that kind of makes the set worth it. But for anyone else, I would probably advise sitting down and thinking whether or not you need 2 Supermans in your collection if you are going ahead and building the horse from the single-carded wave anyway. The Armoured Batman is cool, but I don't really see him as essential, because he's not even all that accurate color-wise. The armor looks good, but the sculpting is far too modern. As compared to the rest of the figures in the Dark Knight Returns wave, he kind of stands out as the odd one out. Plus, he doesn't even come with his sonic gun. It's not even a real gun. It's super stylized. It kind of could even be written off as a grappling gun. He absolutely should have come with it. So at the end of the day, even though my feelings are mixed on this set, there are a couple of reasons as to whether you will or whether you won't decide to pick this up. Do let me know what you think of this set down in the comments below. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.